Much better.
What do you think you're doing?
I thought I could trust her. Rebecca was practically family, the kind of friend who calls you every day, helps you pick clothes, swears she'd defend you from any cheating man. She was the one who supported me the most when Lucas lost his father. "He needs someone close right now," she'd say. "You're too shaken. Let me take care of him for a few days." And I, clueless, let her. Scene 1. I always thought that if I were ever cheated on, I'd make a scene. I pictured yelling, doors slamming, neighbors calling the cops, plates flying, words you can't take back. In my head, a betrayed woman was a hurricane. Funny how, when it actually happened to me, all that was left was silence. Silence in the hotel hallway, silence inside the room, silence inside me. Only the sound of my own heart trying to warn me that I wasn't ready to see what I already knew, but pretended I didn't. I'm sitting now on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, staring at a picture of the three of us, me, Lucas, and Rebecca. It was at some random weekend barbecue, him hugging me on one side, her pressed close on the other, the three of us laughing like life was some lighthearted movie. If anyone looked from the outside, they'd say, "Perfect trio, real friendship, happy couple, perfect balance." I look at that picture today and see something else. I see Rebecca's eyes drifting too much toward him. The way her hand barely touches his back, like she didn't want to call attention to it, but wanted to feel it. I see Lucas looking at the camera, but with a half smile I didn't notice back then. A smile of someone hiding a secret he wasn't ready to tell. My finger hovers over the delete button. Deleting the photo won't delete what happened, I know. But there's something symbolic about not having that scene in my gallery anymore, like removing an altar built for a lie. I still hear, like an echo, Rebecca's phrase, "I'd never let anyone hurt you." She said it laughing, but I believed it seriously. It was almost our mantra, like she was some emotional bodyguard, always ready to protect me from any man who tried to mess with me. Little did I know the hit would come from the one who promised to protect me. When I talk about our story, it feels like I'm talking about someone else. But it was me, and that's why it hurts. I was the betrayed girlfriend, but I was also the betrayed friend, and those two pains mix until they create a third one, even heavier, doubting myself. Because deep down, way deep down, I had signs. I had warnings, shivers, silent questions, but I shut all of it down in the name of something I thought was love. But now I know had way more to do with fear of being alone than anything else. I sigh, lock my phone, set it down beside me. I close my eyes and know exactly where my mind is taking me. Back to the beginning, when everything seemed a little too perfect to be real. And almost always, when something seems too perfect, it's because something's hiding behind it. Scene 2. Before room 406, before the funeral, before the "I messed up" and the "it's not what you're thinking," I had a very clear picture in my head of what my life with Lucas was. If I had to summarize it, it looked like one of those bank commercials on TV. Sunday at my mom's place. Table full of food, everyone talking loud, someone always asking if he wanted seconds. My mom had this habit of looking at us and asking, half joking, half serious, "So when am I finally gonna see you two living together for real?" Lucas would laugh, squeeze my hand under the table, and answer something like, "Whenever she wants, I'm ready." Those were the scenes that made me believe everything was right, that the world could fall apart outside, but there, at that table, on that couch, in that hug, I had a safe place. And there was Rebecca. There was always Rebecca. She was practically part of the furniture in my life. She'd show up unannounced, open my fridge, lie on my couch, borrow my clothes like everything belonged to both of us. My mom liked her. My dad thought she was funny. Lucas got along with her from day one. At the start of my relationship, she was my right-hand girl. She was the one I'd send screenshots to, asking her to interpret messages. "Do you think he's really into me or just being polite?" She'd laugh, say I dramatized everything, and warn me that if I didn't learn to trust, I'd scare off even the ones who actually wanted to stay. "Relax," she'd say. sprawled across my bed, analyzing my clothes like some personal stylist. If he does anything dumb, I'll help you get payback myself. But look at this guy. He's different. She said, he's different so many times I started repeating it to myself. It was like I'd updated some internal software. Now I was the girl who finally found a different kind of guy. Rebecca picked the dress for our first real date, a simple dress, but it hit the waist just right, according to her. You need to stop trying to hide, she warned, lifting my hair up, deciding whether I should wear it up or down. I remember staring at my reflection and thinking, maybe she's right. Maybe it's time to believe I can be happy without expecting a fall. Little did I know the fall wouldn't come from a stranger, but from the ones I let closest. Back then, Lucas was everything a romance-reading friend would call a good guy. Attentive, funny, a good listener, made future plans out loud. I started saving little things he did as proof that this time would be different. He texted to ask if I'd eaten, picked me up when I said I was tired, watched terrible movies just to be next to me, and Rebecca was always there, a witness to all of it, taking pictures of us, posting them with captions like my favorite couple, commenting, if he hurts you, I'll kill him. I laughed, he laughed, and somewhere between the jokes, that phrase started gaining weight, like she was the guardian of my heart. Everything was so comfortable that if anyone had told me the ending, I would have laughed in their face, because from the outside, the whole script looked way too perfect to turn into a drama. But it was right there, in that perfect life setup, that the first crack appeared, one I took way too long to notice. Scene 3, when Lucas's father died. It was like someone yanked the floor from under the life we were building. The news came on a normal night, one of those where we argue about what show to watch and complain about work emails. The phone rang. He picked up, and his face changed in seconds. All the color drained out. His mouth trembled. His eyes locked onto a spot far away. I only heard him repeating, "What do you mean? That can't be right. I'm on my way." After that, everything became a blur. Hospital, paperwork, people coming and going, messages from relatives I barely knew, and me trying to be present, trying to be supportive, but not really knowing how to do that when the pain isn't yours but runs right through you. The funeral was in a hotel in town, in a cold room with way too much white light, coffee that never stayed hot, chairs lined up like anyone could organize emotions like that. Lucas sat in the front row, his father's picture right there, and he looked smaller, like someone hit a shrink button on him. I stayed nearby, but I was lost. I wanted to hug him, but I was scared to suffocate him. Wanted to speak, but every comforting phrase sounded stupid. That's when Rebecca stepped in with a confidence I envied that day. She walked in like she knew exactly what to do. Hugged Lucas tight, in a perfect mix of strength and softness. Talked to relatives, handled things, offered coffee, fetched water, like she had memorized an invisible how to behave at a funeral guide. At one point, she pulled me aside, away from everyone. "He needs someone strong around him," she said, staring straight into my eyes. "You're too shaken. You start crying with him. That doesn't help. Let me handle the practical stuff, okay? You take care of him in another way." At the time, that made sense. I was a mess emotionally. It felt selfish to want to be the main person there. So I agreed. Without realizing, I was handing her the access code to the most fragile part of the man I loved. "Take care of him for me," I even said one of those days, exhausted, thinking I was doing the right thing. From then on, Rebecca started showing up in everything related to his grief. Meeting with the lawyer? She'd go. Document signing at the hotel? She volunteered. Picking up certificates, handling estate stuff, talking to managers, always, "Don't worry, I'll take him, I'll go with him, I'll help, I'll explain." I was so focused on not being a burden, on not making it all about me, that I accepted her constant presence like it was the most natural thing in the world. She'd text me almost every day. "He's needy but staying strong." He reacted better today. "We solved part of the estate thing. I'll tell you everything later." It was like she was the official narrator of his grief, and I was a supporting character who got the summary at the end of the day. But back then, I still didn't want to admit something was starting to bother me. I called it silly jealousy and locked it in a mental drawer. Looking back, that drawer was packed with warnings I refused to open. Scene 4. The first time Rebecca answered Lucas's phone instead of him, I thought it was weird. The second time, I thought it was considerate. The third time, I felt something off that I desperately tried to rename as me overreacting. I called him one night, one of those nights when you miss someone even if they're not that far away. It rang longer than usual, and when someone finally picked up, it wasn't his voice. "Hey, girl," Rebecca said, gentle, like answering his phone was the most normal thing in the world. "He's sleeping. He's exhausted. I stayed here so he wouldn't be alone." I swallowed hard and said something polite like, "Oh, okay. Thanks for staying with him." When I hung up, I stared at the ceiling with the phone still in my hand. Something whispered inside me. Something's wrong. Another part, louder, yelled, "You're awful for doubting your best friend at a time like this." And I chose to hear the side that told me I was awful. I rationalized everything. He lost his dad. It's normal for him to be distant. She's always been present. It's normal for her to help. I'm too emotional. It's normal for me to see things that aren't there. That it's normal turned into a blanket I threw over every bad feeling. But a blanket doesn't put out a fire. It only hides it for a while. As weeks went by, the pattern became too clear to ignore. Lucas started coming home later and later with vague excuses. Meeting ran long. Traffic was awful. I stayed in the car thinking for a bit. When I asked who he'd been with, Rebecca's name appeared more often than it should have. She went with me to sort out paperwork. She stopped by to check on me. She insisted I shouldn't be alone. I caught myself comparing how many messages I used to get from him before and after his father passed. Before, my phone buzzed all day. Silly pictures, memes, "You get there safe," "You eat yet?" After, the messages shrank into short, delayed replies. Meanwhile, Rebecca sent me detailed updates like she was his press secretary. "He cried today, but I think it helped. He's eating better." I managed to make him laugh a little. It felt strange being updated about my boyfriend's emotional state by my best friend, but I felt guilty even thinking that. There was one night I was lying in bed, room dark, the only light from my phone on my face. I listened to her voice messages about him, like she was filing a report, and for a second, I thought, maybe I should go over there. No warning. Just show up. Then I cursed myself. What kind of person doubts her best friend like this? I turned off the phone, rolled to the side, and tried to sleep, clinging to the feeling that I was somehow failing both him and her. Today I know I wasn't failing. I was just refusing to look at something that was already showing itself. Scene 5. Whenever I couldn't handle the present, I ran to the past. It was easier to remember the beginning, when everything was simple, than to face the messy, silent now. I met Lucas in a coffee shop. One of those coffee shops that could be anywhere. Warm lighting, wooden tables, people working on laptops, background music, no one really notices. I was in line, juggling my bag, my phone, and my whole life when I almost dropped my coffee cup. He caught it before it fell. It was a small gesture, but at that moment, it felt like a scripted scene. "If I let you drop this, you'd say your day started awful because of me," he joked, with a smile that seemed to already understand my mood. We started talking right there in line. He asked things, actually listened, made smart comments without trying too hard. Before I knew it, we were sitting down sharing a slice of cake neither of us wanted to admit we didn't need. That afternoon, it rained. I didn't have an umbrella, obviously. He took off his jacket and put it over my shoulders. "I can't stop the rain," he said, "but I can try to save the damage on your hair." It was a silly line, but it landed big inside me. I'd been in relationships where no one cared if I ate, let alone about my hair in the rain. Suddenly, someone was paying attention. When I told Rebecca about it, she freaked out with me. She showed up with soda, snacks, and 1,000 questions. "Show me his picture," she demanded, already digging through my cell phone. She helped me pick the outfit for our first official date like it was a mission from God. Scattered dresses on the bed, criticizing each one until there was one left that, according to her, told the right story about me. You need to stop being afraid of being happy, she said, smoothing the dress like she was blessing it. I laughed at her phrase, but I felt a knot form in my throat. Because deep down, I was scared. Scared to believe this time wouldn't end in heartbreak. The beginning with Lucas was the kind of phase where you want to photograph everything. First movie, first dinner he cooked, first time he met my mom, first quick trip together. In many of those photos, Rebecca is there in the background, laughing, making faces, showing up like the side character who was actually the lead in my life. I fell for him trusting her eyes too. If Rebecca approved, then he had to be good. She'd say, "This guy's different. He's the type who won't mess up. Relax." And I relaxed. So much that I didn't notice when their vibe started to shift. Sometimes when I think of the beginning, I'm angry at myself for trusting so blindly. Other times, I try to be kind and think, how could I have known? The problem wasn't believing at the start. I know that now. The problem was believing even when the signs started screaming. Scene 6. There came a point when I couldn't pretend I didn't notice anymore. The stories didn't match. The times didn't line up. The way they talked about each other had changed. That's when I did something I never thought I would. A test. Not a trashy show kind of test. Nothing with hidden cameras. A quiet test, almost childish, but it was all I could come up with my heart in pieces and my mind on high alert. Lucas told me he had to go back to the hotel to handle more inheritance paperwork, said the lawyer would be there, that it was boring bureaucracy, and he'd be home late. Automatically, I said, "I'll go with you." He froze for a second. It was quick, but I saw it. A tiny gap between my offer and his reply. "No need," he said, trying to sound natural. "It's boring. Tons of papers. You'd just get tired." Something twisted inside me. "I can handle paperwork," I said, defensive. He insisted. Said he preferred going alone, that he didn't want me in that environment again, that it would be too heavy. I didn't argue. But a part of me filed that away as a warning. The next day, I texted him saying I couldn't go anyway, that an important work meeting popped up. I sent something similar to Rebecca, saying I was sad I couldn't be there for him. I waited for her answer with my heart racing. "Girl, relax," she replied almost instantly. "If you can't go, I'll go with him. I'm not letting him be alone on a day like this." It was exactly what I needed to hear to confirm something was off, and exactly what I didn't want to hear. I could have stopped there, but I didn't. I asked a mutual coworker, Anna, to accidentally pass by the hotel at that time. I didn't give details, didn't mention cheating, didn't accuse anyone. Just said he was really down, that I was worried, that I wanted to make sure he wasn't too alone. Hours later, Anna's audio arrived. I remember the sound of my own breathing while I hit play. "So," Anna began, hesitant, which already said everything. "I went there. Yeah. Saw them both in the lobby. They looked close. Got into the elevator together. Didn't see anything weird, but I don't know. It felt off. Maybe it's in my head. He's grieving. She's your friend. I don't want to freak you out." I stopped the audio right there. Not because I didn't want to hear more, but because that part was enough to break me. "Looked close," echoed in my head. The elevator, the two of them entering together, the weird feeling. I felt awful using someone to check up on two people I loved, and at the same time, I felt betrayed for having to do that. That night, I realized the doubt was destroying me just as much as the possible truth. And even then, I didn't have the courage to ask directly. Scene 7. The night after Anna's audio, Lucas showed up at my place later than usual. I was already at the table, dinner ready, the TV on some random channel just for noise. When he walked in, the air changed temperature. He gave me a quick kiss, the kind that feels more like a greeting than affection. Dropped his keys on the table, kicked off his shoes, asked about my day, but everything sounded mechanical, like rehearsed lines. I watched every little move. The way he avoided my eyes for more than 3 seconds. The way he kept checking his phone, like he was waiting for a message he couldn't get in front of me. We sat down to eat. The sound of cutlery felt like a countdown. I knew that night something inside me would decide whether I'd keep pretending or walk into the truth, no matter how painful. "How was your day at the hotel?" I asked, trying to sound casual, like that question wasn't a tightrope. He took a few seconds before answering, chewed slowly, swallowed, drank water. "Tiring," he said finally. "Lots of paperwork, lawyer stuff, bureaucracy. You wouldn't have stood it." "Who were you with?" I pressed, still faking lightness. "With the lawyer," he answered way too fast. "And Rebecca stopped by a bit too." That last part came out smaller, almost swallowed. I felt his breath shift when her name entered the conversation. Subtle, but once you're suspicious, nothing is subtle. Silence settled between us. The TV kept talking about useless things in the background, but everything seemed far away. "You've been weird with me," I blurted, unplanned. He looked up, surprised. "Weird how?" "Like you're always somewhere else. Like there's something you don't want to tell me." He stayed quiet for a few seconds, the kind of silence that weighs the room down. Then came the line I already expected. "I'm just tired. It's a lot to deal with. You know that." And I did. But I also knew it wasn't just that. That night, while he showered, his phone buzzed on the table. I didn't touch it, but I saw the name on the screen. Ray. The preview said, "He was better today. Tomorrow we repeat the dose." Repeat the dose. I stared at that phrase like it was a riddle. What dose? Comfort? Company? Something else I didn't want to name? That night in bed, lying beside him while he slept deeply, I stayed awake. My mind spinning, my heart exhausted, and one certainty rising quietly. I couldn't live in doubt anymore. I didn't know it yet, but that night, without noticing, I had already made a decision to go after the truth myself, even terrified of what I'd find. Scene 8. The next day, the decision I'd made in silence finally grew legs, keys, and direction. I didn't tell anyone, didn't text, didn't ask for advice, didn't warn anyone that I was going after the truth I was terrified to face. I just grabbed my bag, my keys, and whatever courage I had left. The walk to the hotel felt longer than it really was. The city went on as usual, people crossing the street, cars honking, someone laughing loudly on the sidewalk. And there I was, with the feeling that I was walking toward a place I wouldn't walk out of the same. It's strange how the world doesn't change at all when your life is about to flip upside down. When I stepped into the hotel lobby, the smell hit me before any visual memory did. Warm coffee, strong air conditioning, carpet with expensive cleaning product smell. All the same as the day of the funeral. For a second, I thought about giving up, turning around, convincing myself it was all paranoia. But I went to the front desk. The woman behind the counter smiled with that trained hotel employee smile, and I tried to steady my voice. "Good evening," I said. "I'm here to meet Lucas. He's with a friend, Rebecca." I expected the usual hotel routine, ID, room number, last name, but that didn't happen. The receptionist, a young guy who seemed to already know the situation, stepped forward and answered for her. "Oh, the couple from 406? He said, in a neutral tone, like it was nothing. "Couple?" The word landed in the middle of the lobby, and for a moment I thought only I had heard it, but it was there, clear, leaving no room for interpretation. I didn't correct him. I didn't say, "No, I'm his girlfriend." Didn't ask, "What do you mean, couple?" I just nodded like that was exactly what I expected, and took the keycard he handed me. In the elevator, I could barely breathe. Every number lighting up on the panel was one step closer to the thing I'd always been afraid to see. At some point, I thought, if the door opens and there's nothing, I swear I'll never doubt again. When the doors opened, the fourth-floor hallway was quieter than seemed possible. The carpet muffled every footstep, and the only sound came from a TV faintly playing somewhere in the distance. Room 406 was at the end of the hallway, and with each step, my heartbeat climbed higher into my throat. Then I saw it. Before I even reached it, I noticed the door wasn't fully closed. A thin crack let a streak of light spill into the hallway, as if someone had forgotten that secrets require privacy. I stood in front of the door for a few seconds that felt far too long. I could have knocked, could have called his name, could have walked away and pretended I never got that far. But I pushed the door, and in that second, doubt became certainty. I don't like describing what I saw, and it's funny to say that because it's usually the one thing everyone wants to know. But for me, the snapshots are enough. His shirt open, his skin exposed, her body leaning over his, Rebecca's hair falling across his bare chest, her laughter dying the moment she saw me. Nobody was crying, nobody was hugging in silence, nobody was offering comfort. There was desire. There was intimacy. There were two people who had crossed that line a long time ago, and I had arrived only to catch the final scene of a play that had started much earlier. She saw me first. Her eyes went wide. Her hand grabbed the sheet in an automatic reflex, as if the fabric could hide not just her body, but the entire guilt. "It's not what you think," she whispered, tripping over the scripted words everyone knows in moments like these. I didn't respond. I looked at Lucas. He didn't look surprised. Not the face of someone wrongly accused, caught in a misunderstanding, but the face of someone who knew exactly what he'd done and, worse, looked relieved not to hide it anymore. Standing there, seeing them in that bed, I didn't feel the explosion I always imagined. I felt a hollow so deep it was like someone had taken the ground and the air at once. I just stepped back, grabbed the doorknob from the outside, and closed the door slowly, until the click of the lock echoed. I left the two of them trapped inside their own lie. Scene 9. When I turned my back on room 406, I had the clear sensation I was leaving not just that floor, but an entire version of my life. The hallway felt longer than before, as if every step required strength not to collapse midway. I entered the elevator along with a couple laughing at a joke I didn't hear. They were talking about a movie, about choosing dessert. Simple things. I stood there in silence, hands cold, chest heavy, thinking about how, in a matter of seconds, I'd left the group of people betrayed unknowingly and entered the group who had seen it with their own eyes. Outside as the air hit my face sharply. Cars passing, horns honking, people rushing, everything far too normal for a night when my world had just fallen apart. I didn't cry right there, and to this day I don't know if that was strength or shock. I took a ride home as if coming back from a regular day. The driver asked something about the traffic, and I answered automatically. On the outside, I was just another passenger. Inside, it felt like someone had turned off the lights. When I got home, I didn't head straight for the shower or bed. I sat on the living room floor, leaned against the couch, phone in hand. I opened my messages and went to my chat with Rebecca, scrolled up, saw old messages, laughing voice notes, girls' trip plans, rants about guys, advice, inside jokes. One voice note had her saying firmly, "I'd never let anyone hurt you. You know that, right?" I listened to that one again, and for the first time, I didn't cry. I just felt a bitter kind of disbelief, like watching a show and suddenly realizing the character you loved was actually the villain. Then I opened my chat with Lucas. The I love yous felt like another language now. The plans about when we lived together sounded like part of a movie that stopped halfway. The worst part wasn't imagining them sleeping together that day. It was realizing how many small choices they'd made before getting there. Every hidden message, every, "I'll take care of him for you," every, "You don't need to come, it's boring," was part of a path they walked step by step, and I helped pave it. I was the one who told him to trust her. I was the one who asked her to take care of him when I couldn't handle seeing him suffer. I was the one who handed over the access key. That part hurt the most, realizing I'd unknowingly helped build the perfect stage for my own betrayal. It wasn't easy facing that without turning all the blame on myself. For a few minutes, I wondered if I hadn't been supportive enough, strong enough, present enough. But deep down, I knew no one deserves to be betrayed. That was their choice. I just didn't see it in time. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I finally cried. Not just for what I saw, but for everything I let slip by. I cried for the friend I lost and the boyfriend who, I realized, hadn't been mine in a long time. When the crying was too tired to continue, silence settled. And inside that silence, one question. What am I going to do with this now? Scene 10. The days after room 406 didn't come with a manual. I woke up the next morning with an emotional hangover, like I'd drunk too much even though I hadn't touched a drop. The house looked the same, but I wasn't. His mug was still in the sink, Rebecca's sweater still on the chair, his extra charger still plugged into the outlet. Every object felt like a silent witness to a story that had already become something else. The messages started early. First, from Rebecca. "Please pick up, babe. It's not what you think. Let me explain." It was a moment of weakness. "I'm desperate. Don't throw our friendship away." I read everything, but didn't answer. There was something almost cruel in the way she still used the word friendship like a shield. Then Lucas, "I messed up. There's no excuse. I know you hate me and I deserve it, but I needed to apologize." He wrote that he was in shock, that he never wanted things to get that far, that nothing changed how he felt about me. I read that part and thought, how does this not change anything for you? For me, everything had collapsed. They both used the word mistake, as if they'd slipped on a wet floor. But I couldn't see as a mistake something that required booking a room, going to the hotel, syncing schedules, exchanging messages, meeting repeatedly. To me, it had another name: choice. As these messages kept popping up, I started replaying our whole story in my mind, like someone hit rewind and put my life in slow motion. I remembered the first time I introduced Lucas to Rebecca, the way she smiled at him, maybe a little too long, and how I thought it was cute because it mattered to me that they got along. Remembered when she started sitting next to him on the couch, saying it was more comfortable. When the two of them started having inside jokes I didn't get. Back then, I thought it was sweet, like they were forming their own bond. Now, those memories returned with a different meaning. I spent days like that, going back and forth. Part of me wanted to identify some exact moment where everything went wrong. Another part knew that question wouldn't have a fair answer. It wasn't about me messing up. It was about them choosing to betray me. Between one thought and another, something inside me began to shift. At first, I just wanted to understand. Then I started wondering what I was going to do with everything. There was anger, humiliation, disgust. But there was also a huge fear of becoming someone I wouldn't recognize, someone driven only by revenge. I didn't want the worst of them to awaken the worst in me. That was the strangest phase, looking at the wound and realizing that if I didn't take care of it, it would end up defining me. Scene 11. At some point, the pain turned into a decision, not a pretty decision, or easy, or inspirational, but a choice between paths that all looked awful at first. I had in my hands a story that, if told in detail, could wreck reputations, friendships, relationships, images. I imagined 1,000 ways to get revenge, thought about sending screenshots of Rebecca's messages to her family, thought about going to Lucas's mother and telling her everything, including the room number, the day, the time, imagined long, dramatic speeches thrown in their faces somewhere public. The anger fed these fantasies, and for a few minutes, each one even gave me a sense of power, like I held the payback button. But whenever I played those fantasies to the end, another image appeared: myself. I saw myself exhausted, drained, stuck in that same chapter for months, maybe years. Every time I told someone the story, I'd have to relive room 406. I began asking myself, how long do I want this to be the main subject of my life? Of course it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair that I, the betrayed one, had to carry emotional responsibility too. But fair or not, it was real. One day, I sat on my bed with my phone and opened my chat with Rebecca. She had sent more messages, all in the same tone. Apologies, excuses, attempts to share the blame with grief, with timing, with anything but her own choices. I wrote a huge text, said everything I wanted to scream at her. Called her fake, a traitor, reminded her of every time she promised to protect me while she was stabbing me in the back. I reread it and felt a brief relief, like the words were a written scream. But before sending it, something stopped me. I erased it, opened Lucas's chat, wrote another long message, full of facts, dates, sensations, questions. You had a choice, I wrote. And every single time, you chose the one that hurt me the most. I erased that too. Not because they didn't deserve to hear it, but because I realized no message of mine would make them understand the actual size of the damage they caused. and I didn't want to spend energy trying to educate their guilt. Instead of a long speech, I did something else. Opened her contact, block, opened his contact, block. It was simple, almost anticlimactic. No dramatic music, no powerful quote, just 2 taps and a new silence. With that gesture, I understood something. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is refusing to give them an audience. Refusing to carry their names around like a surname. I didn't choose forgiveness in that moment. Forgiveness is something else, from another place. What I chose was to stop feeding their presence in my daily life, and strangely enough, that was the first real step toward myself. Scene 12. Time passed without asking permission. Not enough to erase everything, but enough to turn shock into painful memory, and painful memory into a sensitive scar. I went back to work, answering messages that had nothing to do with room 406, laughing at things that didn't remind me of their names. Still, sometimes something pulled me back. A hotel hallway in a TV show, a similar phrase, a random room number. It was in one of those almost normal life phases that I saw them again. A regular afternoon. I was meeting a coworker at a cafe near work. I walked in, ordered my drink, got my name spelled wrong on the cup, as always, and looked for a table. When I lifted my eyes, I saw them, sitting near the back, facing each other, not touching, not laughing loudly, not starring in a dramatic scene. Just 2 people talking about who knows what, like any couple or almost couple. For a second, my whole body froze. The world narrowed into a tunnel where only that table existed. I thought about leaving, turning around, pretending I didn't see, but I didn't leave. I stood there, cup in hand, motionless. They saw me. First Rebecca, then Lucas. It was like seeing 2 ghosts, though I knew the ghosts were more mine than theirs. They got up, walked toward me slowly, like approaching something that might explode. "Hi," Rebecca said softly, her voice far from the confident tone I knew so well. "Are you okay?" I could have said anything sharp. Could have said, "Better now that you're not in my life." Could have asked if she truly cared about my well-being, but I only said, "I'm getting by." Not perfect, but honest. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling a bit. "For everything." Next to her, Lucas nodded. "Me too." That was it. No big explanations, no monologues, no poetic regrets. Too late are insufficient apologies. I looked at them and realized something I hadn't yet. I didn't want anything else from them. Not truth, not lies, not justification, not reconciliation. I just wanted distance. "I heard you," I said. Nothing more. I walked back to my table, sat, took a sip of my coffee, tasted the bitterness, and for the first time, it didn't remind me of them. It was just coffee. That afternoon, instead of replaying the encounter over and over, I surprised myself thinking about something else. Not how they destroyed me, but how, even broken, I was managing to move forward. Scene 13. Life didn't give me a big end-of-chapter sign. No special soundtrack. No sunset scene marking the moment I'd finally healed. What I got were small gestures, barely noticeable, that together started to tell a different story about me. One day, cleaning my phone, I realized I still had photo albums with the 2 of them, my smiling face between them, my hand holding his, Rebecca's arm around my shoulders, scenes that, now, I know weren't of a trio, but of 1 person believing and 2 acting. I could have left those photos there, forgotten, could have turned them into a collection of evidence, a personal archive of the emotional crime they committed. But that day, I chose differently. I started deleting. Photo by photo, memory by memory. Not as someone denying the past, but as someone choosing not to revisit it every night before sleeping. Then, I took out a jacket that still smelled like Rebecca's perfume. For months, I'd left it buried in my closet because the scent made me sick. That day, I took it out, folded it, and placed it in a donation bag. It wasn't about erasing everything that reminded me of them. It was about choosing what I wanted to keep carrying. Finally, I booked a haircut appointment. It wasn't a movie impulse, not the dramatic woman cuts hair after breakup trope. It was calmer than that, almost peaceful. I sat in the chair, looked at my reflection, and barely recognized the person staring back. Not because of hair or makeup, but because I saw someone who had walked through fire and was still standing. "Cut a little more," I told the hairdresser when she asked how much. As the strands fell to the floor, I felt a strange kind of lightness. It was just hair, of course. But for me, it felt like shedding a bit of the person who accepted anything just to avoid being alone. When I left the salon, the world was the same. Traffic, noise, people scrolling their phones, life moving on. But inside, I felt different, like I'd taken a step out of a story that wasn't mine anymore. That night, lying in bed, I grabbed my phone one last time to deal with something tied to them. I opened my archived chats and found his name, her name. Instead of rereading anything, I slid my finger and hit delete conversation on both. My screen looked cleaner, and for the first time, that visual emptiness didn't feel like loss. It felt like space. Space for other things, other people, other chapters not yet written. Emotional closing. Today, when someone says the word betrayal, most people imagine the dramatic part, shouting, slaps, revenge. But for me, betrayal is the silence of a hotel hallway, the slow click of a door closing, the weight of a sorry that comes too late. I was betrayed by my boyfriend and my best friend. That's a fact. But it would have been even crueler if I had kept betraying myself by staying where there was no respect left, by calling love what was actually neglect. It took time to understand that the question, "Why did they do this to me?" has no answer that heals. What began to heal me was a different question. What am I going to do with myself after this? I didn't choose what they did. But I chose not to let that hotel bed, that room 406, that quiet corridor be the summary of my story. If I learned anything, it's that the greatest revenge isn't ruining the life of the ones who hurt you. It's refusing to let what they did ruin who you are. Does it still hurt a bit to remember? Yes. But the pain doesn't command me anymore. Room 406 became a symbol, not a prison. And if I tell this story now, it's not to feed the anger. It's to remind myself, and maybe anyone listening, that no one gets to own our ending. They chose the lie, I chose to continue.